You may shift focus. It may look different than you thought it was. You don't have to be married to the idea, but just allow it to unfold and never, ever, ever give up on yourself.
You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Hey there, No Labels, No Limits podcast listeners. Welcome back to another week of the podcast. I am Sarah Box, your host, and we are on a mission here at the No Labels, No Limits podcast to help individuals, teams, and organizations think outside the box, break free from either self-imposed or externally imposed limitations or beliefs so that they can do what they need to do, be more of who they are, and show up more authentically in the world. And today we are thrilled to have another guest who will help us do all of that. Her name is Karen Gruber. Now, Karen is an international business coach, and she specializes in elevating spiritual entrepreneurs from behind the scenes to center stage. We are going to talk about that. Karen is on a mission to transform the landscape of spiritual entrepreneurship, and she empowers women to step into their greatness, articulate and the transformative impact that they create, and ensure their messages resonate powerfully with potential clients. So stepping into greatness, articulating impact, and ensuring their messages resonate. Right there, that's a lot to give. Karen's groundbreaking work helps spiritual entrepreneurs achieve financial prosperity without sacrificing spiritual fulfillment. So through her program, which we'll touch on her program, the Spiritual Client Code, she empowers her clients to step into the spotlight with confidence and clarity. And beyond her coaching, she's also a #1 best-selling author, known for her approach that beautifully marries spiritual fulfillment with financial prosperity. That is something to think about. So now, let's move from thinking to actually chatting and formally welcome Karen to the podcast. Hey, Karen, how are you?
I am so terrific, Sarah. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to it. I love learning about our guests in advance of the interview. And one of the things that you shared we have for folks listening, there's an onboarding process, but one of the little nuggets that was shared with me during this is that you have read the top 100 novels of all time.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you to recite those novels. However, what inspired you to do that?
I am a voracious reader and somewhat of a recovering overachiever. So I wanted to take my love for books and put it to good. And I was just very curious, like more than anything, I was so curious what those 100 novels were and what that experience would be like. And I had a blast. It was absolutely fabulous.
So how did you figure out? Did you just Google top 100?
I did. I ended up, there's multiple lists, but I followed at that time the Modern Library 100 best novels of all time.
How long did it take you to get through all 100 books?
It took me just under 10 years.
Not bad.
Yeah, so I averaged about 10 books a year.
And from the process, not necessarily from any specific books, but from having done that, what was a takeaway or transformation for you that you experienced from going through that?
The biggest insight I received was much like life. It's just be open and try things that maybe you wouldn't normally try. And there were books on there that I thought, really, I'm going to read this. And then I would read it and I loved it. And they weren't certainly titles that I would just pick up at the airport or something like that, And I just found it to be a fascinating process in being exposed to all kinds of literature and authors from the 1800s to the 2000s. And really, it was an education in and of itself. It was really quite wonderful.
It's kind of like going to a mini university that you created
Yes.
yourself. Yeah. Excellent. So let's just do a little bit of a start at the beginning. How did you come to do the work you do with spiritual entrepreneurship?
I always knew that I wanted to help people. And my husband and I owned a real estate company. He's a little bit older than I am, so I knew there was going to come a day when he would retire, and I am not the retiring kind of person. I can sit still for about 2 or 3 days, and then I'm bored out of my mind, and I got to be doing something. So I did. I really had the luxury of time to think about it, to get certified, to experiment with different audiences, and I started out working with moms, and then I kept getting this information like finances, do it different. And I was like, I wonder what this all means. And finances, that's not me. And but in reality, my husband and I had done over $600 million worth of deals in our business. And it was like, who am I not to teach about finances and what to do with money and how to earn it? And I really got connected with it when I realized that part of my mission is to, like, I would love to get my hands on every woman on the planet and teach each one how to earn and generate her own income. Not because I think she has to, but because I think everyone should know how to generate and earn income if they need to or they want to. It allows us to make choices in and out of relationships, which is a big one, because I know so many women feel like trapped in a relationship because they've survived it so far, yet they don't have the financial independence to be able to leave, even if they're not, completely fulfilled, and choose into relationships and take risks, not risky risks, but being able to experiment and enjoy life and have the experiences that you want to have. So it all kind of came together in bits and pieces, and then finally one day I said, okay, I'm gonna listen to Spirit, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna claim it. And when I came out as a business coach, truly was when my business exploded financially. There were still times when I was like listening to the experts and doing things that kind of felt, unaligned. But the more I came in alignment with my true self and my values and my spirituality, the exponentially the business grew.
Let's spend some time diving into that, because you say it so naturally, and yet I find for myself and for other businesses, there is this sense like we understand a path or a process, and then we hear that you should do it this way. Or if you're lucky in today's world, you get bombarded with things saying, hey, we can exponentially do XYZ for you and give you this pipeline. And you're going, oh, maybe I should do that. When in fact, your gut's saying, no.
That's not for me.
It's not
Yeah.
for me. But there's a couple of unique things you're saying. You're talking about the spiritual side and listening to Spirit. Mm-hmm. You're talking about recognizing your unique gifts and education, your business experience, and then also choosing to stand in both of those. Mm-hmm. Have I captured so far correctly?
Totally. Yes.
So, but I can see and have been in and come in and out of, right? The place where you're in there thinking, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Or am I replicating something that used to fit but doesn't fit? So let's pretend I'm your client. What happens? I mean, how do you help me come out of that conundrum?
Yeah, well, there are a couple things. And one thing that I want to say for entrepreneurs or people who are out there thinking about starting their own venture is it may look completely different 5 to 10 years from the day you start. And as you evolve, then it's only natural that your clientele is going to evolve. So it is going to look very different. And you, yes, you may shift focus, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. But it's really, I remember I was working with a woman and she was saying, I want to do A, right? And she's talking about A, and, there was some energy behind it and it was perfectly fine. There was, nothing wrong with it. She could definitely build a viable business. And we're like 6 weeks into working with each other. And she says, but what I really want to do is da 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 da. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how long have you known this? Like we're almost afraid to say out loud what it is we really want, for fear maybe it's too big, or who am I to do this, or people are going to think I'm absolutely, cuckoo if I say this is what I'm doing now. And unless we do listen to that and claim that, that's when we're going to be fulfilled, both financially and spiritually.
So I heard that's what you said you did for yourself when you finally just said, I came out as a business coach and bought your spirit. What did that look like for you?
For me, it was really, I loved working with moms. And in the beginning, I really felt that was my place. I had just been a new mom. I had a 2 or 3 year old at the time. And I was like, moms need a lot of support and they need a lot of help. And there are so many great things and techniques and things that I can teach them. And that was wonderful. But it almost was out of, like, again, following the experts, what they say. It was almost like it was out of a sense of obligation. Like, I'm a mom, so I got to serve moms. And I love that, but it wasn't my true calling. And so when you get those whispers and you see glimpses of the possibilities for yourself, that's what you need to follow. It's not what anybody else tells you should be doing, or you're so great at, event planning, so you should be an event planner. Maybe that doesn't make your heart sing. Maybe it does, but maybe it doesn't. Just because you're good at it doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. Or I get a lot of clients who have overcome some major trauma or illness, and they feel obligated to serve that population, when in reality, for them, it kind of brings them down. It's like, I don't, I've broken free from that, and I don't want to live in that space anymore. And that's totally fine. That's what, some people do want to work with that population, and others want to do something different. So it really is listening, just listening, getting quiet, being still long enough so that you can really hear and tune into what's resonating with you.
So here's a challenge I find.
Yeah.
And I find it personally, but also in groups that I work with, is we slow down to listen. Mm-hmm. But then there's the differentiation between what I think I'm hearing and what I think I should be hearing. So does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's like, how do I filter, and I guess validate is a word I could use there. It's like, how do I validate that this isn't just me putting on another should hat versus like, whoa, this would be great.
Yes. The biggest thing I could say here would be to really tune in to the energy of the thought or the belief or the idea. And if it's like exciting and maybe a little scary, like, you're on the right track. If it's like, this is another to do, or like you're saying should, if it's feeling like I should, I would keep asking questions and keep trying to get clarity on that. But when there's like that buzzing of excitement and nervousness and maybe a little, ooh, I don't know, like being on the roller coaster, how thrilling that can be. But when you're at the top of the hill, you're like, what have I done?
What did I just do?
Get me out here. That's the kind of energy that you want to follow.
So what kinds of questions do we ask ourselves, though, that can help us dissect? kind of.
Yeah. I strongly believe, and with my clientele, I take them through meditations that, call in their spiritual team and ask questions in a meditative state, in a state of expansiveness and awareness and limitless, like your podcast, no limits. Like, what would that be? And what can that look like? And what is it? And sometimes this comes, we may be picking up our kid from school, or maybe we're in the shower and you get that like vision almost, or a glimpse of what's possible. And it's like, ooh, the whole body lights up in that moment. And then 3 seconds later, we've talked ourselves out of it and given ourselves a million reasons why it could never work. And it's not for us. And all the things we tell ourselves. So just being like curious and just keeping asking questions that make sense to you. Like, what could this look like? And if I did do this, what would that mean for me? Like, what would I be experiencing? How would I be feeling? How do I want to feel? What do I want to experience? Who do I want to help? What do I want to help them do? And just keep asking yourself those questions.
So what's brilliant about those questions is that none of them said, how will I do this? Like, you didn't get stuck in the weeds of how to manifest it or how to make it come. It's like, what could it be?
Yeah.
How could I be?
Yeah.
So those are very open and possibility. I think of those as possibility questions.
Yes, because as soon as we say the how, then the mind goes into overdrive and tells us how it's not going to work. And we never know how it's going to look. I imagine, Sarah, when you first visioned your fabulous podcast, maybe you had something very different in mind, or you didn't know what it was going to look like. And now down the line, you're like, wow, this is not what I anticipated. This is way better. I mean, we can never know how. We can have the best of intentions, the best laid plans, and then it looks, completely different.
Absolutely. No, and that is true. I was in a mastermind group today, and one of the questions is about business podcasting and what, why should you or shouldn't you? It was very logical. And I thought, and I had already mentioned to one of the people ahead of time, I said that my reasons for a podcast were never tied to my business. They were tied to learning. And like first initially tied to like my own learning, how to do it. What's it like? Do I like it? But for me now, it's like, I think about your 100 books, right? Yeah. Okay. If I can talk to 100 people, which I do routinely, right, over time, I can learn. I can learn from people from around the globe that I might not otherwise meet. So it becomes this kind of thing for, oh, wow. And those people have introduced me to other people, right? So it's just this learning experience thing. But when I started, you're right. It was like, I wonder if I can do this. Like, am I able to do it? And what would it look like? And so you're right. We really don't know. But let's talk about people who are kind of where you were when you were starting and working with moms. And so let's say you have a client that's come to you and she's in that headspace, like, well, I've been doing this, but I really want to do X. Yeah. And she's doing all the possibility things. Do you help, or how do you help transition from that person who sees themselves as this is what I do, or this is my business today, to being able to be in that new person business and feel like it's a fit for them?
Because they have doubts or concerns that it's a fit for them?
Yeah, it can be that, but it can also be like, if you think some of the folks have families, right? So now they're counting on them being away. Like maybe that mom's business is generating revenue and the family wants it, but she's going, I want to try something different, right? That can be scary, right? Very. Yep. And depending on if they're a major breadwinner in the family or not, maybe they're the sole breadwinner. Yes. So there's a transition piece in there, going from this moment to that moment. How do you help people kind of move through that with some kind of sense of personal groundedness and assuredness for who they are?
Yeah. If you are not sure what your purpose is, let's say. I mean, first of all, we all have more than one. I mean, we have a purpose on a daily basis, and my daily basis is to hug my daughter, kiss my husband, tell them how awesome they are, make their lives better. Like that on a daily thing is my thing. And then maybe a neighbor has lost her husband, so my purpose that day is to provide comfort of some sort, right? So, I mean, people talk about purpose like it's the one and only sometimes, but we're so much more than just that, right? But when it comes to a business, or even if you're considering like a charitable purpose or something, is really, if you're unclear, is to kind of date your purpose. Meaning, you know, if you're thinking about getting into business coaching, talk to some business coaches, ask them what their day is like, ask them what their clientele is like. If you're thinking of going into, you want to get certified as a Reiki practitioner, go get Reiki done and talk to practitioners and see what their practice is like. And just like, you don't have to decide that moment if you know your heart is calling and your soul is calling you to do something different, right? So that would be one thing. And then I am a big believer, and I know there are coaches out there that feel differently. I have never in my career said to someone who was a major breadwinner in their family, quit your job tomorrow. We're going to start this Wednesday, right? Like, it takes a very special person to not be so overwhelmed with that they go into they don't go into a downward spiral. And like the pressure is so great, right? And, you know, some coaches are like, nope, that's gonna, you know, you got to put all your eggs in this basket and you just got to go for it and make it happen and la, 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 la. I don't believe in that philosophy. So what I do believe in is finding times where maybe you can cut back on your hours a little bit and devote a couple hours a day or devote one weekend day to building the next thing that you want to do until you are comfortable in terms of selling in particular, because as you know, we don't just get to coach. We have to sell. We have to enroll clients. We have to attract people to work with us. And nobody tells you this when you want to do this work, right? I mean, I just thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be so amazing, and I'm going to be working with clients, and it's going to be great. Well, it took me a really long time to get my first paying client, and nobody had told me that. So it's really important, because selling for a company looks very different than selling yourself or selling your services. And there's a lot of weird energy that goes on when somebody tries to sell themselves.
Describe
right?
the distinction, because I've noticed that too. I mean, you've got folks who are super great in selling for a company or a company
Yes.
brand. So, but why, when that person wants to sell for themselves, is it different?
My belief is because we take it personally. All of a sudden, it's, if this person doesn't buy, that means they don't like me. We put a judgment on it, like I'm wrong or I'm bad or I don't have anything of value if somebody tells me no. Whereas if we're selling, you know, software or cars or homes or whatever, there's no attachment there. If they don't like it, it's okay. Let me show you this house over here then. You know, I mean, it's very different. And I think, and I'm speaking in huge generalities, but I think women in particular take that way more personally than males do, in terms of there's something wrong with me or I don't have value. Whereas, again, very generally speaking, men are just like, okay, next. Who else can I talk to? Who else can I talk to? Right? So it is a lot of internal dialogue work that goes along with, you know, with the business strategies, so to speak, and the business techniques to get us over that threshold.
And you do your work. This is I'm pivoting here. So
Yeah.
I used the word and I thought, this is a non sequitur, Sarah. Don't use and. I'm clearly overthinking my sentence structure. Okay. Anyway, So you really use a spirit, a soul-filled way of helping folks. Have you always done that, or how did you come to that way of being, Karen?
I came to this way of being because I had tried what felt like everything else, and I felt icky, for lack of a better word. It felt very like salesy and manipulative and not me. And because of that, I was not having the success that I knew I could be. And it did take me a while to kind of embrace this, but really once I embraced it in its totality, the last thing I had done was I had paid a company quite a significant amount of money to help me launch a program. And I was like, I've got nothing to lose. I'm just going to do everything they tell me to do. Did everything. I did not have a single sale into my program from that launch. I did have a couple private clients come, but for the purposes of that launch, I did not sell a single person into that program. About 6 months later, I thought, I know this program is good. So I did another launch. I did it solely by listening to my intuition and what I wanted to experience and what I wanted to try. And I got 10 people who enrolled that weekend. So it was like, okay, this works. This is like a thing. When we are ourselves, when we are authentic, then we are drawing the people who want to be around us, who want to do what we're doing, who want to learn what we know, who want to be, if you're a healer, they're attracted to your energy and the healing that you do. If you're a teacher, the knowledge, the wisdom, the whatever. And I have actually had clients say, I don't care what it is you're doing. I just want to do it because I know you're just being around you is so fabulous. And, everyone can experience that in their business. I'm not something special. I'm just being me, right? And so when you can really operate and trust, trust, Sarah, as you know, is like a big thing. You have to trust that it's all going to work and unfold the way that it's meant to. The people who are meant to benefit from your work or from being in your audience or whatever touch points there are going to show up, and you're going to reach the right people. It's a huge trust fall.
It is. And it doesn't come without doubt rocks, right?
No,
you can be in trust, and then you've got days where you're going, whoops, what was that? That was a worry rock. But you're right. There is a trust of who you are and why you're here. And I also wonder, Karen, if you've experienced this too, but I think a lot of folks are fed this, do this, and in 6 months, this is what your business will look like. And
you're going to make $1 million overnight. Look at me. I did it. It's easy.
Right. Yeah. And that's it's like weight loss commercials. Results that you see are not typical.
Yeah. Well, then why are you showing me this?
Because we all want the overnight success, right?
Yeah.
But to that point, I do think there's that realistic piece that you have to be willing not only to be authentic and listen, but to continue showing up.
Continue showing up. It's almost like, in my experience, like when things feel like they're either falling apart or you're discouraged or, you did a workshop and instead of 20 people showing up, 3 showed up. I mean, these things happen, right? That's when you almost have to double down on the trust. It's like, it's coming. It's just, you're a whisper away, but you have to keep showing up.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. The second you quit, then how can you succeed?
Right. A whisper away. I think that's a takeaway today for sure, because I've often thought about that. I work with a number of nonprofits who in the beginning, like they had this idea and I, especially when we do planning, like, but really, what are you trying to accomplish? No, but really, don't tell me your activities, but really, what do you want to accomplish? Yeah. And this one group, that it was such an audacious thing. They said, we want to be the go-to resource here, right? They didn't even exist yet.
I love it.
These were leaders who were learning together to build capacity together. So anyway, they formed themselves. They did all this stuff, the legal things that need to be done for nonprofits, kept running their own organizations. But here we are, 12 years, 13 years later, they are the go-to. They are extremely successful. They are doing things they never imagined they would do, but they kept showing up. And even today, they keep showing up and they keep morphing and growing and expanding. So, but we joked at one point, I said, I know, it's so great you guys were an overnight success. They said, yeah, it only took us like a decade, right?
Right.
But there is that cumulative effect, right? You keep doing something and it builds, and the trust of others on you builds, and your confidence in yourself grows at the same time.
100%. And I can't recall now where I had heard this, but the question was, do you know the best time to plant an oak tree? And the answer is 20 years ago. And when's the second best time to plant an oak tree? Today. So it's never too late, but you do have to build in the consistency and keep showing up even when you wonder, what am I doing here?
Well, it changes your trust in yourself too. And for me, if you don't trust yourself, it's hard for other people to trust you.
Totally. Yeah.
So we spend in some of the time that we have left, will you talk to us about your spiritual client code program and what that is, Karen, so that people who are curious go, oh, I can understand this now.
Yes. So the spiritual client code is an entry-level course that I created because, and I'm sure you've heard this and experienced this as well, particularly those, and I heard this term just this morning, which I love, soul practitioners, like the healers and the transformational coaches and spiritual entrepreneurs, right? We all engage in these beautiful processes, and we love to talk about the processes. But to someone in the audience, it sounds like a luxury, like, ooh, I hope my husband gets me that for my birthday. Or when I make, $10,000, then I'll do that, right? And so it sounds like a luxury instead of a necessity. So what I teach these entrepreneurs is how to talk about their business, their services, their products, whatever it is that they are offering in a way that shows people tangible results so that they can see that the investment is worthwhile. And all of a sudden it goes from, ooh, wouldn't that be lovely, to, oh, I need this. I didn't realize I needed this. And that is, I think, the biggest hurdle that soul practitioners experience, is they don't know how to talk about what they bring to the table, what the results are that people get from the work or the product or whatever the service is, in a way that gets people to invest and to see it as a necessity instead of a luxury.
I like the term soul practitioners as well. So can you share a concrete example from someone you've worked with or your own practice who does that type of work, that soul-inspired work, that can speak tangibly instead of theoretically or experientially only?
Yes. So a lot of times what and the course has all kinds of examples, and it actually has like 50 statements of tangible results, because we know there's a couple things that we know. We know our work can help virtually anyone, and we know that our work can help with virtually anything. But if you go out there and say, well, I can help anyone and I can help you fix anything, it sounds, one, almost too good to be true, and it doesn't sound true. It's like, what? No way. So if we don't get specific about the people that we work with and the results we help them get, somebody can't see themselves in that picture. They're like, what? She helps with weight loss, relationships, business, and my happiness? Like, they don't see themselves in that picture. So we have to get super specific. So it could be something like somebody who specializes with alleviation of anxiety, right? Well, that sounds great, interesting. Okay, next. But if they talk about how this relieving of anxiety is going to help you get the 7 to 9 hours of sleep that you need every night, and really quality sleep, so that the next day you're not yelling at your children, you're performing in your job, so you're getting the promotion that you want, and your relationship with your husband, and now there's no more bickering because you're so stressed out and you're so anxious and sleep deprived that you're bickering all the time, and now you have an intimate relationship. I mean, these are things people are like, oh, I do that with my husband. It's like, ooh, that would be nice not to have that. Or, yeah, I am really snappish with my kids. I don't like me when I'm like that. Like, now all of a sudden they can see themselves in that picture, and it's like, oh, it's not just anxiety relief. It's like relief from all these other things that are happening in my life.
So you do help get super specific.
Super specific. Yep.
So when you did that with your business, because you went from being the moms, how do you talk about your business?
The two biggest benefits to working with me in my business is creating a business that is financially rewarding and soulfully fulfilling. Like being able to make the impact. Like, yes, the money is nice, and we all need money. We need to pay our bills, right? But most of the practitioners that I work with, they're not like in it for the money. They need to make money, but they're not in it for the money. They're really in it to make a difference and to make an impact. So being able to be financially compensated for doing the work, making the impact that you want to make, that's like the best of both worlds. What could be more delicious than that?
Exactly. Yeah, and to not feel the grind, right? But because I'm doing what I want to do and can do well, right? And to be compensated or recognized, depending on how people view their business and have it set up. So
yes, exactly.
Excellent. So I have a question for you specifically about your book.
Okay.
So you've written the #1 best-selling book, right?
Yes.
Share a bit about that. Well, a couple of things, but tell us more about it, the title, but what more importantly in that inspired you to write it? Because did you do this before or after you read all those novels?
It was after. It was after. It was part of, so writing a book was part of a business program that I had wanted to take for years. But writing a book was like a quarter of the course. And I was like, I have no interest in writing a book. I don't see myself as a writer. I'm not a writer. I mean, no. Well, about 3 years later, it came across my radar again, and then I got curious. I'm like, what if I did write a book? Or what if I just attempted to write a book? What could that be like? What would that experience be like? Now, it didn't hurt that there was a retreat in Hawaii to write the book, so that was a bit of an incentive. But we went on this beautiful 5-day retreat to write the book, and they were very specific about, although this is a business course that I'm in, program that I'm in, like, don't come with a plan. Just be open to the process, see what comes, just allow it to be. So I was in it. I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to write about. I'm just going to show up and I'm going to do what they tell me to do. So at the end of the 5 days, I had about 80% of the book completed. I was the only one out of 40-some people that walked away with a novel. Everybody else's was a business book. And that was fine, but I just thought it was very interesting. And the process I can only describe as a divine download. Yes, there were autobiographical portions of it, of my experiences and things that I overcame, but literally, like, I just wrote, and I did not feel cognizant of what was being written on the page until I went back later and reread it. So it was quite a spiritual experience for me. And I realized I am a writer. We all are, if we give ourselves that opportunity. We all have this innate creativity within us, whether it's through the expression of the written word, or our voice, or singing, or painting, or pottery, or, any of the arts, right? Performing. We all have this innate creativity that I think in many of us is dormant because we don't allow it, we don't give ourselves the space for it to come out.
So what is the title of your book?
It's called When Lions Roar, and it takes place in Africa. And just a quick synopsis, it's about a family, a husband, wife, and their daughter, young daughter, and the daughter goes missing while they're there. And the mother has to overcome an abusive relationship, alcoholism, all these things that are going on internally. And really, it's a story of her reclamation of self in hopes that her daughter will return.
Well, we're not going to spoil the end of the story.
No.
Oh, nay. We're not going to do that. Wow. We'll talk about an amazing result to come out of your retreat, though. Especially when you didn't have a plan.
Yeah. It was just beautiful how it unfolded.
Karen, what should I have asked you, or did you feel compelled to talk about that we didn't even get close to today?
Oh my goodness, there's so much to it all, but really for the purposes of this conversation, I just would love to encourage anyone who is even thinking about starting a new venture or what if, to really follow that impulse and give it a try. And if you're already in it, I beg you to never give up on yourself. You may shift focus. It may look different than you thought it was. You don't have to be married to the idea, but just allow it to unfold and never, ever, ever give up on yourself.
So keep nurturing those dreams.
Yes.
So I know you do have a free gift for our listeners.
Yes.
Will you share what it is?
Yes. So the free gift is a PDF download, and it is soul-driven client attraction. Like, how do I, in my realness, how do I attract clients? And so there are 6 main points that I teach in all my courses about how I show up as someone who has a successful business, is fulfilled, and what does that look like, and who are the people that I want to work with. So it's called Soul Fueled Success and Mastering Client Attraction with Ease. And if you are not in business, you still may want to pick it up because it actually applies to really anything in life that you want to attract. Whether it's a new partner, whether it's a job, whether it's a circumstance, it's like, how do I do this? It's not just for client attraction, but since that's my business, that's what I titled it. But it's really effective for lots of different things that you want to bring into your life.
So folks, we'll have a link to that as always in our show notes for you, as well as the links to connect directly with Karen. But of your links, Karen, is there a preferred one that you are always available on, or that you love people to reach out to primarily?
Yes. That is a really good question. I would say through the free download, or I know my email address will be listed. Just reach out and say hey. And if there was something that resonated with you during this time that I had with Sarah today, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Or if there's something like, I totally disagree, here's what I think, I would love to have a conversation with you. So anything at all that's on your heart or your mind, just feel free to shoot me an email. I answer them all.
Wow. So you can tell that Karen is very real and how she shows up, and her openness and willingness to receive and connect with us.
Yeah, there's nothing better.
Karen, I want to thank you for your time today. I have learned a lot of, actually, you've sent me away thinking about some things. So thank you for all of that.
Oh, Sarah, I want to thank you for creating such a fabulous platform for people like me and others to, one, meet you, and get familiar with your work, and also to connect and have an opportunity to share with others. So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. It's my university.
Yes.
It's my university. And thanks for being a teacher. All right, Karen, we'll be back in touch soon.
Okay, bye.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic business coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/No Labels, No Limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. Please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Till next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.